Hi guys, my name's Natalia and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the Mid-Year Book Freakout Tag. Honestly, I feel like most people have already posted theirs and we're kind of like way past the mid-year, but I really want to do this anyway. So here I am. I'm recording it on the 23rd of July. Not sure when I'm gonna post it. So before I get into it, I want to shout out these original creators of this tag. ReadLikeWildFire and Earl Grey Books. Here's my 2025 version of this tag. Just for reference, so far I've read 32 books. I am getting closer to reaching my goal, so I might actually make my goal higher in the end. It's been quite a good reading year for me, I have to admit. I feel like last year I was in a bit of a reading slump, so I didn't end up reading as many books as I had hoped to, but this year I'm just like, I do not feel like I'm in a reading slump. I keep feeling like I want to read books, so it's been great. And I guess let's get into the tag. The first question is best book you've read so far. And for this question, I had to choose two books, honestly, because both of them just were so well written that I cannot stop thinking about them to this day. The Secret History, consider it the mother of all dark academia books. It is such a haunting and chilling book. Just thinking about it still gives me chills. So if you do not know what this book is about, it's basically about this group of classic students who study at this elite college and they fall under the spell of their like very eccentric professor and they end up murdering one of their own. And this is not a spoiler because this was literally said at the very beginning of the book. So it's not like a whodunit type of mystery. It's more like why did they do it and what happened to them in the aftermath. So basically, even though we know that one of the characters dies from the very beginning, the tension leading up to this moment and also everything that happens afterwards is so intense. It's like the story unfolds slowly but with a constant sense of unease and dread. Like I said, it's not like a whodunit type of mystery. It's more about the psychological fallout. I think what makes this book really stand out is the characters. Donna Tartt managed to create this really realistic, layered characters. They're honestly deeply flawed and they make some horrible choices, but nevertheless, they were really fascinating to read about. It's just like a very well written, very immersive story, so I highly recommend this. And now, The Song of Achilles. This book destroyed me. So it is a retelling of the story of Achilles and Patroclus, who are originally Greek mythology characters. The author takes Patroclus, who in the original myth, and especially in the Iliad, is more like a sidelined character. And he's usually just associated by his relationship to Achilles. But Madeline Miller takes this character and she makes him the narrator and she shows us this story from his perspective and she gives him this entire, psychological world. And what is more, she makes Patroclus and Achilles lovers. I think what makes this story so powerful is that it's a real love story at heart. The way the author brings out these quiet, emotional moments between Achilles and Patroclus turns this ancient myth into something incredibly intimate and personal. So seriously, if you want a book that will stay with you long after you finish it, this is the one. But be prepared because you will probably cry. I definitely did. I mean, if you know how like the Iliad ends, then you kind of already know how the Song of Achilles will end as well. But I don't think that it makes this book like less compelling. It feels like watching a car crash in slow motion. The way you like know how things will turn out, but you can just watch slowly and you cannot really do anything about it. You cannot stop it. It's really terrifying. I've actually recently made a video talking about this book and why I think it's such a great retelling. So if you want to watch it, I'll link it down below. I talk in more depth about this book there. It's also so beautifully written. This book has some of the most gut-punching lines that I've ever read in a book. So it definitely is one of my top reads of this year. The second question is best sequel you've read so far, and for this, I'm sorry, but I also chose 2 books. The Ballad of Never After. It is a sequel to Once Upon a Broken Heart. It is a fantasy book in which the protagonist Evangeline makes deal with Jax, who is the Prince of Hearts and also a very dangerous fate. So this book is basically the continuation of their story, but I feel like it's definitely way more twisty, way more interesting, and also way more heartbreaking than the first book. It was just such a good sequel. This series is essentially a trilogy, but I feel like most people's favorite book in this trilogy is this one because it was so good. Like the yearning between Jax and Evangeline in this book was insane. And I love Jax as a character. Like, he's such a morally gray, complicated character, but he's so charming that it's literally impossible not to fall in love with him. So if you're looking for like kind of magical, whimsical romantasy that has no spice in the entire trilogy, then I highly recommend this one. Okay, and next is the book that I was just putting off reading for such a long time. I read the first book in this series, One of Us is Lying, like a long time ago, maybe like 2 years ago. While I enjoyed it, I thought the ending was kind of stupid. So I really was not feeling like reaching out for this book, even though I got a copy a while ago. It just was sitting on my shelf and I couldn't bring myself to read it. And then one day I started reading it and I got so hooked. And this ended up being one of the best thrillers I've read so far this year. Even though it is a YA thriller, it's just written way better than some of the adult thrillers I've read this year. I don't know, I've had like a very bad streak with some thrillers this year. I don't know what is it about them, but I really hated so many of the thrillers that I've read. So I was so happy that I actually enjoyed this one. So what's different from the first book is, even though we're in the same town, you know, in the same school and everything, we do follow like a different set of characters. The characters from the first book still make quite a lot of appearances, but they're not the main characters anymore. And I have to admit, I really took a liking to the main characters from this book, so that was definitely a huge plus. And basically there's this like anonymous person who makes this truth or dare game. So it starts off like pretty, you know, innocent, I guess, but it turns more and more deadly and dangerous with each round, and things just escalate very quickly. I think the mystery was actually quite well written. So I feel like the plot twists, while they were shocking because I couldn't predict them, they were also believable. What I'm trying to say is sometimes I get to a plot twist and it's so ridiculous and so like unbelievable that I'm like, what is even happening? Like the author just tried a bit too hard and ended up coming up with this really implausible answer to all of the questions. So I really do not like these types of thrillers, but I feel like all the plot twists in this thriller actually, while shocking, they were quite believable, and I could believe that something like this really could have taken place. The pacing was a bit slow at first, but it picked up later, and overall it was just a very engaging read and such a great sequel in general. Oh, by the way, I cut my finger yesterday with some glass, but I'm okay, so don't pay attention to that. New releases you haven't read but want to. Okay, the One that is like top of my list is Sunrise on the Reaping. So obviously the new Hunger Games book. I actually want to like reread the whole Hunger Games series because I've read it like as a teenager. I don't even know if I got to the last book, but it's just been such a long time, so I want to reread it. But yeah, I definitely want to start by reading this new book because I've heard so many great things about this book and like people like crying and everything, so I'm just really excited and I definitely have to pick it up as soon as possible. Okay, another one that I want to pick up is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. So this is like a story about different women that come from different generations, but they're like all vampires. I think it's described as like this gothic, sapphic vampire novel. So it sounds honestly like a vibe, and I did enjoy The Invisible Life of Adi LaRue by the same author, so I definitely want to check this book out as well. And one more book that really caught my attention is The Night and the Moth. So it is like a gothic romantasy novel about a girl that receives like visions in her dreams. From these visions she can predict like bad things that will happen. So sounds really interesting. I've heard really great things about this book, so I definitely have to pick it up. Oh, and I forgot, literally today, look what came in the mail. Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. Literally one of my favorite authors of all time. She has come out with a new book and it came in the mail today. So obviously I'm so excited to read it. It's about this girl named Jet who will try to solve her own murder. You may be a bit confused by what do you mean? Well, she suffers like a head injury after someone attacks her, and she basically has like a week to live. So during that time she sets out to find the person who did this to her and basically solve her own murder. That's such an interesting premise. I've never heard of anything like that, so obviously I'm so excited to read it. And I mean, it's Holly Jackson, so I know it will be good. Next question, most anticipated release for the rest of the year. So I thought about it hard. The one that I'm like truly excited for is A Theory of Dreaming by Ava Reid. It is a sequel to A Study in Drowning, which was one of my top reads of last year. And I'm so happy that she's coming up with the sequel. Ava Reid just writes these lush, gothic, dark academia settings so well. And I can't wait to see how she wraps up Effie and Preston's story. I guess maybe the second book I'm also like really excited for is Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. So this is Stephanie Garber's like first fantasy adult novel. So far she's only written YA novels. So I'm really excited to see what she comes up with. I will be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the cover itself, but I'm not going to judge a book by the cover, so I'll have to read it and see what it's about. But from what I've heard, it's like a fusion of Hollywood secrets with cinematic mystery. So it sounds very interesting, and obviously because it's Stephanie Garber, it's going to also have fantasy and romance elements. So I can't wait to read it. Next question, biggest disappointment. I put here Never Lie by Frida McFadden. Oh, where do I even start with this book? Well, it was a super quick read. I finished it in like one day. Let's talk about what I didn't like about this book. So the atmosphere was definitely eerie. I will have to say that was probably like the only thing that kept me engaged, but everything else was just not good. Let's start with the writing. It's just not good. It's so simplistic and really repetitive. Like, I don't like, similar sentences were showing up, and also the main character's monologue was repetitive. It just made the whole thing feel monotonous, and also just like the author was trying to reach a certain word count and that was it. The characters were also deeply unlikable and just like really uninteresting. So like in the case of the Secret History that I told you before, like the characters really were written, and even though they weren't necessarily likable, they were still really layered and fascinating characters to read about. But in Neverlie, they're unlikable, and that's it. There's like no depth to them, and like they didn't even feel like that consistent or well developed. So some of their decisions like made no sense at all. And while I'll admit like the final plot twists were surprising, I feel like they were not realistic. It was wild how much has gone down without anyone noticing that there was something strange going on. There was no police involved, not even once. And like, trust me, I know that police can be really shitty at their job, but with how much went down, I'm like, how come nobody noticed anything? And the ending, I really hated the ending. It was so far-fetched and unsatisfying. Honestly, I hated this book with passion. And now I'm really contemplating if I want to read other books by Frida McFadden. So I read The Housemaid and I remember liking it, but like she's coming up with so many books, and if all of them or like most of them are written the way Neverlie is written, I'm just not even sure if I'm really interested anymore. So let me know if you know any good Frida McFadden books. Like I want to give her a chance, but I don't know, I just feel like it was not for me. I like more stories with more depth, I feel like. Next question, biggest surprise. So for this one, I chose House of Hollow. This is like a fantasy horror novel, and I was actually not sure if I'm going to like it, but I ended up loving it so much. I gave it 5 stars, so it definitely surprised me in like a very positive way. This story talks about these 3 sisters that went missing as children, and then they came back changed in a way, you could say. So first of all, the atmosphere in this book is really haunting. I remember when I was reading it, just like some parts in this book made me look over my shoulder just to make sure that no one is behind me, because I was so spooked. And also like the characters and their backstories are really intriguing, and the mystery was so well done. And when all the pieces of the puzzle finally clicked into place, I was so shocked, and I was like, wow, this is like such a well-written book and well thought out story. So if you're in the mood for something dark, gripping, and extremely atmospheric, I definitely recommend this one. Favorite new or debut author? So for this, I also chose 2 authors, actually 2 romance authors. Up until this year, I haven't been reading that many romances, maybe because I've had some like bad experiences with reading very cringy, very shallow romance books. But this year I read quite a few romances from Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez, who are both like very well known and very liked romance authors in the bookish community. So if you want to know which books I've read by Emily Henry, I've read Funny Story, Book Lovers, and Great Big Beautiful Life. And by Abby Jimenez, I've basically read the entire Part of Your World trilogy. So Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and Just for the Summer. And I have to say, I loved all of these books. So they are definitely my new favorite authors, and authors that new releases I will definitely be anticipating. I feel like both of them just like deliver these romances that are very cute and heartwarming, but also have a lot of emotional depth and are also really funny. Definitely both of these authors have become like instant buy authors for me, and I highly recommend checking out their books. Next question, new favorite fictional character or crush? Okay, definitely I loved Daphne from Funny Story. Let me grab it. Daphne from Funny Story. I just like that she was so relatable, especially like the part about her being socially awkward and just like scared to make friends and feeling like people are bound to leave her because there's something wrong with her. I just found that part so relatable, and I love Daphne. I also love the male character in this book, actually, Miles. So I guess you could say he's my new fictional crush because, oh damn, I really fell in love with this guy. Like, literally, I was even questioning if he is actually a fictional character because he felt so real to me, and I feel like I'm really in love with him. And then I already talked about Jax. So again, like I said, he's like this very charming, witty, sarcastic character, and I love his personality so much. Obviously, he can be sweet when he wants to, so I just love how unpredictable he is, and like just every scene with him is just so entertaining. So I love Jax so much. Next question, a book that made you cry. I mean, I think it's gonna be no surprise if I say The Song of Achilles. I was bawling my eyes out. And another book that also made me cry was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's just such a beautiful and emotional story. It's about this girl that makes a deal, and as a result of that deal, she can live forever. But unfortunately, she gets forgotten by everyone she meets. So basically, as soon as she's out of their sight, they forget that they even met her. So obviously, it is a very sad and lonely existence. It is an extremely impactful and thought-provoking read, and it made me cry like a baby. So I highly recommend it. It is a bit slow, so if you're not really into like very slow books that really dive deep into the emotional states of the characters, then maybe it's not for you. But if you are okay with that, I highly recommend checking this out. A book that made you happy. Honestly, I read a lot of like cute romances that made me happy, but I want to shout out Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. It's about these two ER doctors who start writing letters to each other, like real letters on a paper, which is really cute. They slowly start getting closer and falling in love with each other. This book has this balance of being like very charming and funny, but also grounded in real emotional struggles. But the romance made me really happy, and also the representation of anxiety and social anxiety also made me really happy. So our main male character struggles with anxiety, and I just love how realistic the portrayal of his anxiety was. And I also love how Brianna, so the female main character, just really didn't judge him, didn't think that he was exaggerating or that he was being too much, but she just really tried to help him get through any stressful social situations, and she always understood him in a way that I think every anxious person wishes to be understood. So it was something that really touched my heart, and that I think that's why I love this book so much, and it made me really, really happy. Next question, most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. So I think this one is definitely one of the most beautiful books I own in general. I love this so much. It's such a beautiful edition. But I also have to mention these special editions of Six of Crows duology, actually collector's edition. So they are like really, really beautiful editions of my favorite duology of all time. So yeah, I think these are like the most beautiful books that I've purchased this year. On to the next question. What books are you prioritizing to read by the end of the year? So I've got like a list of books that I really want to read this year. Just to mention a few. Okay, so I definitely want to read Jane Eyre. Obviously it is a classic, and I just feel like I want to experience it. I've never read it in my whole life, so I want to finally experience this classic. Another one I really want to pick up is Anxious People. So I've heard it's such like moving and funny and also surprisingly deep novel. It's about a failed bank robber who accidentally takes people hostage at an apartment viewing. But really, this book is about the way people's lives intersect, about empathy, second chances, and all of that. I mean, it seems like a very emotional and thought-provoking read, so I'm so excited to pick it up. Okay, I have to read One Dark Window. It's been on my TBR for a very long time, but I've heard so many great things about this gothic romantasy novel, and a book that's been on my TBR for a very long time, and I'm so excited to finally read it, which is Heartless Hunter. So it is like an enemies to lovers romantasy about a witch and a witch hunter that fall in love with each other. I mean, I'm always up for a dangerous romance with lots of like tension and betrayal, so I feel like it's going to be so good, and I've heard so many great things about this book. It also has a sequel, so I'll probably read the entire duology pretty soon. That was actually the last question of this tag, so this was my mid-year freakout reading. What? Okay, I feel like I'm very tired. Like, I'm starting to talk just some nonsense. Like the sentences I make don't even make sense. I feel like I'm just really tired, so I guess I have to go and take some rest now. So before you click off this video, let me know your favorite read of this year so far in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.